No matter where you come from, no matter where you're going, here's a place where you can take comfort in the knowing that whether if you've come to stay a while or just passing through, this door is open to you. Come and let's be silent. Come and share a hug. Come, let's pray together. Come, love and be loved. From the blissed out to the turned out, from the pampered to the abused, this door is open to you. Come on in. Come on in. Come on in. Come on in. The God in us recognizes the God in you. The God in you. Whether you're black or white, gay or straight, Christian, Buddhist or Jew, this door is open to you.
Good morning. There we are. Hi. Hello, Unity family. It's good to see you all. I'm Reverend Megan Goshevsky, and I am here today to welcome you to this amazing spiritual sanctuary we call home. As you know, Reverend Darlene is not here today, or if you don't know, now you know. We'll talk about that a little bit more, but I just want to welcome everyone and welcome all of our live streamers. So we want to say thank you for joining us. And I'm going to start out with an opening prayer. So if we could all just close our eyes. Let's just take in a deep breath. And exhale. Just letting go of all that busyness. Just allowing ourselves to be fully present in this moment. Allowing ourselves to tap into that oneness with God or Spirit or the divine, whatever you so choose to call it. Allowing yourself to be centered in that moment, to be grateful for that connection, and to feel that love just permeate your whole body. And as you do so, you realize that the people around you are also resonating at that higher level of consciousness with you. That we are all steeped in love this morning. So we thank you, Father, Mother, God, for your beautiful gifts that you give us today. With this amazing talk and class with Reverend David thereafter. It is a great day and we are blessed. And we say thank you. And so it is. Amen. Aho.
Good morning. My name is Terry Crosby, and I wanted to let you know that Reverend Darlene is in Kansas for the week. She's at the annual Unity Convention, and she'll be back next week. Today we have a very special guest speaker. His name is Reverend. Yeah, how about that? Reverend David Ault. But first, Kat Williams is going to lead us in an opening song. So stand up and join with her.
1, 2, 3. Everybody get up off your feet, see the light in everybody you meet. Everybody get up on your feet, see the light in everybody you meet. Let us be reminded of who we come to be. We are love, we are one big family. Yeah, 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 yeah. Everybody get up on your feet, see the light in everybody you meet. Everybody get up off your feet, see the light in everybody you meet. Let us be
reminded of who we come to be. We are love, we are one big family. Yeah, 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 yeah. Good morning, unity of the Blue Ridge. I invite you to turn to your neighbor and greet them with a namaste, a hello. Good to see you again. I will stand for love. I will stand for love. 'Cause I know I can be strong for love. Yes, I know I can be strong for love. I'll stand for peace. I will stand for peace. So beautiful. Let me hear you proud and loud. Stand for peace. 'Cause I know I can be strong for peace. Yes, I know I can be strong for peace. I will stand for you. I will stand for you. I will stand for you. 'Cause I know I can be strong for you. Yes, I know I can be strong for you. Sing it. I will stand for love. Yes, I will. No, I will stand for love. 'Cause I know I can be strong for love. Yes, I know I can be strong. Woo! For
Thank you, Kat, and our Unity Band. That happens every Sunday. Every Sunday. You know, I think in my head that my voice is like Kat's, but I don't want to put a microphone in front of it because it's not. Anyway, so we just want to take this opportunity to bless any of our children, tweens, teens at this moment. This is the time where they leave the sanctuary, and that's typically when I'm heading back there too. And we go back behind this wall over here and have an awesome time. So if any are kids today or teens or tweens that want to join, so at this point we bless our youth by saying, we love you, we bless you, we appreciate you, and we behold the divinity in you. Thank you. All right, so if this is your first time at Unity, we want to acknowledge you and not embarrass you. So if you would raise your hand kindly, we have some ushers that can come around and give you, it's like a whole group, welcome. So we have our ushers will come by and give you a little red heart if you'd like to put that on so we know who you are, so we can come around and greet you. We're one big family here, so you're going to get talked to, I'm sure, by a lot of people if you have that red heart on. So we hope you enjoy your time here, and if you have any questions, you are more than welcome to ask any of us. We have a good thing going here, and we'd love if you'd come back. So, and I think, oh, and we are going to do one more blessing for all of our new people. There we go. I'm not normally up here, so Terry and I we said we're winging it. We're just in the flow with it, so we are just flowing today. Here we go. So for all of the newcomers here and for the newcomers that are with us on live stream, we love you, we bless you, we appreciate you, and we behold the divinity in you. And now I'm going to go sit down.
I'd like to remind you all that there's a little flyer right outside the door that gives all the events, all the upcoming events. So if you don't know about these, you might want to pick one up. Also, if you have not yet turned your cell phone off or put it on airplane mode, this is a great time to do that. And now I'd like to share today's inspirational reading. This is from one of my very favorite books by John O'Donohue. It's called Anam Cara. Anam Cara means soul friend. So here's what John O'Donohue has to say for us today. It is a book of Celtic wisdom, by the way. There are many kinds of solitude. There is the solitude of suffering, when you go through darkness that is lonely, intense, and terrible. Words become powerless to express your pain. What others hear from your words is so distant and different from what you're actually suffering. Everyone goes through that bleak time. Folk consciousness always recognizes that at such a time, you must be exceedingly gentle with yourself. There's the story of the wolf spider, which never builds its web between two hard objects, like two stones. If it did this, the web would be torn by the wind. Instinctively, it builds its web between two blades of grass. When the wind comes up, the web lowers with the grass until the wind has passed. Then it comes back up and finds its point of balance and equilibrium again. This is a beautiful image for a mind in rhythm with itself. We put terrible pressure on our minds. When we tighten them or harden our views or beliefs, we lose all the softness and flexibility that makes for real shelter, belonging, and protection. Sometimes the best way of caring for your soul is to make flexible again some of the views that harden and crystallize your mind. For these alienate you from your own depth and beauty. Creativity seems to demand flexible and measured tension. If the strings of the violin are tuned too tightly, they snap. When tuning is balanced, the violin can endure massive force and produce the most powerful and tender music. And finally, I'd like to leave you with a quote from today's speaker, Dr. Reverend David Ault. He says, "There's never been a better time to let the leaves of mediocrity fall from your tree of life."
Here we all are, gathered together in this place. Why are we here? What is our purpose? What is our real? Where do we go? What's true and what's real? We may not know what life's road will lead, but it doesn't matter. as long as we believe that God is the answer. God is the answer. God is the answer to whatever the question may be. What's going on in this world today? Where do we fit? What can we do to make a difference? What can we say? What do we go? This way or that way? But if we all pray and truly believe and love one another, as long as we believe that God is the answer. God is the answer. God is the answer to whatever the question may be. Oh, if we all pray and truly believe and love one another the way we ought to be, 'cause God is the answer. Oh, God is the answer. God is the answer to whatever the question may be. Maybe, Lord, maybe.
They call this the Church of the Running Mascara, so now you might know why. Woo, I gotta come back from that. Thank you all, thank you. Okay, so as we mentioned, Reverend Darlene is not here, but we have an amazing speaker today. And I'm gonna say it right, Reverend David Ault is gonna be with us. And he is offering a class right afterwards, starting at 12:30, Energy Shifting, Why Worry? And I have been given this little handout here for our very own illustrious Angela. Will you stand? Curtsy to the crowd. She will be your person, your guide person to sign up for the class if you'd like to do so, if you haven't already. There's going to be some really cool stuff going on, so keep that in mind after this talk today. So, for over 30 years, David Ault has been a prophetic voice in the human potential movement as an unwavering crusader for mindfulness, global literacy, and social justice. Whether through teaching, singing, coaching, or speaking, David's singular intention has always been in bridging our collective forgetfulness into our great collective reawakening. As an award-winning author, leadership coach, and global education advocate, he loves leading through example and abides by the motto that people would rather see a lesson than hear one. Please join me in welcoming Reverend David Ault.
So much. It's a full house. My gosh. So it's Reverend Dr. David Ault, which is a mouthful. And yet, this is so perfect because I'm at that stage in my life where I'm dropping all titles. So you can just say, hey, you. This is like an award show real quick. There's so many people I want to thank for being here. First of all, my friend Fernand Poulin is here. And Fernand moved to the Asheville area, and I forced Fernand Poulin to go down the Ganga River in India much to his unpleasant fear, in a massive storm because we were delivering water to villagers on the other side of the Varanasi. And he said, "How long will it take?" And I said, "Oh, about 2 hours." And about 8 hours later, when we paddled back in, and he's still speaking to me, and he's here today, so that's really nice. My friends Angela and Augustus are here. I went on their honeymoon with them. Actually, it sounds better that way. They came on a trip to Bali that I was facilitating, but I like the idea that, and they've been instrumental in bringing me here, and they're housing me. And one of my nearest and dearest and beloved colleagues, John Waterhouse, is here today. And I have to say, John and his wife Barbara embodied the ability to love you by being seen. Do you know what I mean? They would see me. And in seeing me, there was an honoring that was so deep and so rich and so unfailing that I am always in great debt to you. And I can't believe that you're here. This is very sweet. Thank you so much. All right. So before the band plays me off, I'd like to thank the Academy. But I've had incredible people in my life. Have you ever stopped and paused and reflected upon all of the angels, sometimes in different disguises, that have come through? And one of my first teachers, when I was getting my divinity degree through religious science, I was in a class, and I'll never forget, a fellow student raised their hand and they said, "What's the best spiritual practice?" And, of course, we all wanted to know, well, what's the best spiritual practice? What is it that you do that defines who you are? Because the hidden verbiage behind all of that is that's what we want to do. And I'll never forget what she said. She said, "Whatever gets you through the night." And oh my God, that set me free. Whatever gets you through the night. And what I interpreted that to mean is that whatever calls you, there are many paths up the mountain. And whatever it resonates for you, and sometimes what resonates for you is momentary. Sometimes it morphs and evolves into something else. But the fact that whatever speaks to you, honor that. Even if no one else around you is entertaining that particular methodology or practice. To really hone in on and to listen to and become at one with your own intuition and your own love. So when she said, "Whatever gets you through the night," she had no idea. I lived in Los Angeles at the time, and there was the Theosophical Society, and they had an auditorium in Los Feliz. And they would print out this guest speaker list for months in advance. And I was very enthralled by this man named Alberto Villoldo. And I like to say that name too, Alberto Villoldo. It's like Isabella Rossellini. And Alberto was a Cuban anthropologist, and you may have read some of his books. He's very well known. And he would tell this amazing story, and it still remains with me today. He said, "When I was young, more than anything else, I wanted to go to Peru, and I wanted to find a way to endear myself to the Andean priest. I wanted to learn those healing practices. I wanted them to see the purity of my intention, and I wanted to be able to do what they do. I kind of wanted to take this branch or this form of healing or shamanism and bring it to a larger audience." And so he went, and it took him 10 years before they would welcome him in. And to his credit, he just kept going back. And finally, they invited him to go into some ceremonies into the jungle, into the rainforest. And that first day, all of the Andean priests were walking uniformly into this territory, and he was at the rear of the line. And he said, "Imagine like there's an entrance, like, okay, now enter into the jungle." But he said that there was like this line of demarcation. And as they were walking up to this particular space, you could hear all the noises of the jungle. You could hear the cacophony of the birds and all of the wildlife and all of the exchanges of nature just echoing and booming. And he said, but the moment that I crossed that line into this jungle, everything fell silent. And he thought, well, that's strange. And so he was trying to figure it out in his mind. What's the reason behind that? And he said, I know, it's because I'm wearing deodorant and I have gel in my hair. So that night, because they were going to be a succession of excursions into the jungle, and he says, I'm going to wash all Western amenities off of me. And the next day he did that, but the same thing happened. Everything went quiet. And he began to be a little annoyed by that because he really wanted to figure it out. And so each night as the succession of these ceremonies progressed, he would try something new. He even went and got a garden snake, and he slit it open, and he rubbed all of the guts of the snake on him so that he could smell more at one with the jungle. And he said that was the worst, because all that it did was attract a multitude of mosquitoes that ate him alive. And finally, he just went to the priest and he said, this is what I have observed. Every time I step in, everything goes silent. And one of the Andean priests said to him, oh, that's very simple. It's because you still believe that you have been cast out of the garden. And so all of that nature, all of that life form that is in tune with the universality of everything could sense, if you can imagine, that there was a presence there that was aligned with separation. And he used to tell that story, and I was amazed because I thought, I think that's really the crux of our suffering, is that we're walking around unconsciously subscribing to the idea that we've each been cast out of the garden. I like it this way. I was looking at some behavioral science material one time, and they said that there is an agreement between all different types of theology, biology, psychology, where sometime between the womb and about 7 or 8 years old, something happens. You could call it a trauma, and it runs the spectrum. So that trauma could be cataclysmic, it could be just really magnanimous, or it could be something as seemingly insignificant as the baby kicking the blanket off in the crib and being cold, and there was no relief in that moment. But whatever it was on that spectrum, be it from the womb till about 7, they describe it as a separation of the soul. A separation of the soul, which means that this becomes then the fundamental lie. So the fundamental lie isn't, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy enough, I'm not lovable enough, I'm not smart enough. Those are sort of spokes in the wheel, but the hub of that wheel is, are you ready? I am separate. I am separate. So it's sort of the curriculum of what I call coming into the land of two. The us and them, right and wrong, good and bad, worthy, unworthy. So the whole curriculum of this plane of form is duality. And in that duality, we are taught what? Through observation, through behavior, through indoctrination, that we are separate. And so these priests were trying to tell Alberto that what he was subscribing to was the idea that he had been, metaphorically, cast out of the garden. Cast out of the oneness and the union with that which is God. And so when I would go and I would listen to him, and sometimes I studied with him and I learned these things, I found it so in alignment with all the other different multitudes of path, whatever got me through the night. I was really fortunate. So my second mom, or my surrogate mom, was Louise Hay. So when I was a kiddo in Los Angeles and I moved, a good friend of mine that I had gone to college with was running sound for her. And this was in the days when she was beginning the thing called the Hayride. And so Jerry came to me and he said, Louise wants music. How about because we had sung in college. He said, how about you and I and his partner at the time, what if we write things for Louise? And so we did. And my relationship with her was such that it filled a void that I didn't experience in my own familial background growing up in Southeast Texas in fundamentalist, Praise Jesus church. And so when Louise became very big and she took us on the road with her, my spot usually in the van was right next to her. And I was an actor, and there were many times that I would whine in the van because the running joke was, can you stop? I have to call my agent. So this was back before cell phones, and you had answering services. And so the joke every day was, David, do you need to stop and call your agent? And one day I did, because I was up for something huge, and I didn't get it. And I came upon the van, and I went into this sort of tirade about if my situation had been different, if I had grown up different, blah, blah, blah. And Louise let me finish. And then Louise had these incredible nails. She loved her nails. And she took her nails and she dug them into my leg. In fact, the marks are still there. She dug them into and she said something that she had said many times, but I never heard it. And it was this: need I remind you that you must learn to honor the entirety of your journey? The entirety of your journey, not just the pleasant parts, but the whole thing. Because that entirety is what moves us and pushes us. Ram Dass used to tell this great story about teaching meditation in the prison system, and he was beginning to do that. And his first assignment was with those who were on death row. And he went to teach meditation to those on death row. And he said it was one of the most memorable and profound experiences of his life. That when he walked into the space where they were going to do this meditation together, that the place was sort of like beaming with light. That as he looked at each of these inmates, that the portal of their heart was just emanating this pure, pure energy. And he said it was transformative. And then he went to do the same with those who had been sentenced to life, the lifers. He said completely different experience. In fact, many of them were there and they didn't want to be there. And they mocked him, and they threw things at him, and they were only there out of obligation. And he asked himself, what's the difference? What's the difference? And the thing that he wrote about in an old book of his called Grist for the Mill was that he felt that those who were on death row had been pushed into the corner so far that the only thing left to do was surrender. To let it all go, to let go of the story, to let go of the names, to let go of the wounding, to let it all go and to just be present. And I remember reading that and thinking, that's what's happening to all of us. There is this divine, beautiful thing in this land of two, in this curriculum of duality, that is not working in happenstance or by accident, but is working in this meticulous harmony to push each of us into a sort of metaphoric corner, not out of punishment, but why? In order that we may remember that we've not been cast out of the garden. So the process of pushing us into the corner is the releasing of the titles and the stories and the grudges and the wounding, so much so that the inevitability of our one mission here, to be free, can happen. And that freedom takes place in consciousness and in our mind. And so when Louise would say to me, you must honor the entirety of the journey, I had so many reasons and calculations and stories and tactical maneuvering of why that wasn't true. And I'm just now getting to the point I'm 104, and I'm just now getting to that point in my life where I'm understanding. I'm understanding what it means to let go. And I'm beginning to taste the fruits of what that freedom is. Last summer, maybe you know this Unity minister. His name is Britt Hall. He's a good friend of mine. And so we hiked the Camino de Santiago, and we did the Portugal route. And this was the second time that I had walked the Camino. And this time, last summer, it was for my foundation. I have a foundation that builds schools and brings education to some of the world's most impoverished territories. And so we're in Cambodia and India, and we work with schools in Guatemala. We have an initiative in Africa now, and we're looking at certain school systems that have lost funding in the United States. So everything is geared towards education. And I thought, I'm going to walk the Camino again as a walk for education to try to raise money for my foundation. And so it was a day 22, and somebody the day before said, oh my God, tomorrow's Goat Mountain. And I said, what's Goat Mountain? And they said, well, the locals call it Goat Mountain because they believe that nothing but goats should be up there. So that didn't really sit well with me. And all that night I didn't sleep because I was dreading the experience of Goat Mountain. Have you ever been, waiting in that waiting period and you can't sleep because the mind is just so busy? And the heat wave last summer in Europe was just unprecedented. And so I got to the base of Goat Mountain, and it was maybe 7:15 in the morning, and I was already soaking wet. And I remember standing there just going, I wish this was over. I just wish this was over. And then very softly, very gently, this thought came to me and said, nothing's going to happen as long as you stand here and wish. The only way that you will move forward is to just begin. And then I thought, oh my God, that's what process is. Everything is process. Everything is process. And our suffering comes from wanting to be someplace other than where we are in the process. So when Ram Dass says, be here now, I went, that's what he meant. Be here in the moment of the process. Not in the past, wishing that something had been different. Not in the future, hoping that somehow something will change. But understanding that in the moment, you are in the garden of perfection, of creation, of harmony, of divine design, of meticulousness. And so I made a little mind game for myself, and I thought, okay, I will walk 20, 30 steps up Goat Mountain, and I'll stop, and then I'll do 20, 30 more. But as I'm walking, I'm going to try to think of something in creation that is exempt from process. I was at the top of Goat Mountain, and I still had not come up with anything that was outside of the realm of process. So when we talk about peace, when we talk about contentment, when we talk about all of the things that all of those spiritual practices are trying to get us to, that place of awareness, that each thing is pushing us to the corner more and more and more to just be where you are. Where you are. Some people call it the point of power. But I had spent so much of my life out there, in front of, futurizing everything. No, my point of power is when this particular thing is resolved and this particular thing is handled. But we start to see that the beauty is that that power is here right now and has always been. Nothing is exempt from process. And so everything then is working for our favor. I was reviewing this week the old story of the eye of the needle. You know, when Jesus was teaching and he used the parable and he said what? He said, it is easier for a camel to move through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to enter into heaven. Now, let's look at that metaphorically. Rich meaning what? Equal opportunity, rich person to enter into heaven. Meaning that when we become enmeshed and entangled with acquisitions and things and titles, but it doesn't stop there, in beliefs. When we become siloed into thinking that this is the only way that it can be, then that is a part of an accumulation. And so when you learn about this parable, you learn that the eye of the needle was the name of a gate in Jerusalem. It wasn't the main gate, it was a side gate. It was a gate for after hours, and it was a way to protect the city. And so the only way that a merchant could get through the gate after hours was they had to take and offload all of the baggage off of the camel. And then the camel had to do one of these babies to get through the thing, and then the merchant would have to take everything and put it back on again. So when Jesus said it's easier for the camel to get through the eye of the needle, it's easier for that camel to cross through this narrow passageway in the gate. Sometimes that it is for us as human beings to let go and unload our story, our wounding, our futurizing, our acquisitions. Oh my God, if I can just get this, then I will be spiritual enough. And so we become professional seekers. Nothing wrong with that. It's all beautiful and perfect. But at some point, there really is a line of demarcation where we get to cross into the jungle of this dualistic thing, and everything continues to sing. It doesn't go silent. It doesn't echo back to us, oh my God, you still believe that you've been cast out of the garden. It's that somehow, some way, in the path, there has been a wisdom that was in there all along that has beautifully become unveiled. And we've allowed ourselves to accept that. And we've said yes to that. And so what is it? What is it then that must be offloaded? What is it that keeps fertilizing the idea that you have somehow been cast out of the garden? These are big things, big questions, relevant questions to sit with and contemplate. They are questions that take us on journeys for a lifetime. I will never forget in some of those studies that began with Alberto, of beginning to look and understand that the biggest perpetrators of my grief were the ones who loved me the most on a soul level, from back in the garden. And I used to intellectualize that and say, isn't that beautiful? Doesn't that help with our forgiveness? And yet when I would think of that person, or I would come in contact with it, I was right back, trying to wash off all of the stuff. And so it never moved from the intellect into full embodiment. And I learned that that's okay. I learned that even in all of this spiritual exploration, we can still beat ourselves up with spiritual practices, because it continues to enhance the narrative that somehow we are separate. So I like to think there's at least one person every single time that I speak, somewhere, that takes this and begins to offload whatever it is that has burdened them so much, and begin to really fully consider that everything about the journey was perfect, is perfect. It's a hard thing to say. It's a hard thing to say when we are seduced into only looking at this single plane of form. So during the pandemic, I was sitting at my writing desk, and I thought about that definition of insanity that we all know. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And all of a sudden, I said, on one level, but insanity is also this: forcing a singular dimensional answer to a multi-dimensional experience. What we forget oftentimes is that nothing is as it seems. This is not the whole game. That you and I, in the depth of what we are experiencing and living as a soul, we've just borrowed this skin suit temporarily. That all of those things, regardless of the appearances and the narrative, is working, as Scripture says, together for our good, to them that what? Love. And as metaphysics teaches us, the word Lord translates to law. To them that love, understand the lawfulness of the universe. And so I end with a story about the monk, and the village girl gets pregnant by one of the fishermen, and she's really embarrassed, and the village people are angry, and they said, "Who did this?" And she said, "The monk. The monk at the top of the hill, he did this." And all of the villagers march up and bang on the door, and they give him the baby, and they say, "This is your responsibility." And his response was, so. He takes the baby. 8 years later, the young girl who gave birth to the baby is dying of an illness. And she's riddled with guilt, and she confesses that it was the fisherman and not the monk who was the father of the baby. And everyone in the town is so embarrassed. And so they march back up the hill, and they bang on the door, and they apologize. And they said, "We're so sorry. We're here to claim the child back." As he stood there with his arm around the child, and he said, so. And he gives the child back to them. And you begin to understand what it means then to just be in the flow of whatever is, to not cling, to go, this is a part of the process. I wonder what will happen here. And so I invite you to close your eyes this morning and take a deep breath. As we move into meditation, I welcome the beautiful piano. Do me a favor. You've been asked to take a deep breath for so many times in your life. What would it be like if you took a breath right now that was the most conscious, most self-aware breath you've ever taken? Let your feet be flat on the floor. Get in touch with the fact that you have the co-creative ability to take that breath and to channel it anywhere in your body. And so whatever needs a little more attention, just let that breath infiltrate there right now. Soften the middle of your forehead. Pull your shoulders down away from your ears. Just breathe. And be here now. accepting, honoring the genius seed that has continued to grow inside each and every one of us. Honoring the fact that the seed has continued to grow even when we have neglected it. Why? Because it is our destiny. We're all on the same journey back to the one. How may we now become more reverent about where we stand in that journey at this moment? How can we begin to offload the things so that we can move through even the eye of the needle and experience all that is made of heaven? This is not reserved for some. This is the path of the all. How might you today move where you stand on that path just a little more closer, a little more free, a little more aware, and a little more grateful of the entirety of your journey? Tell your soul, so, thank you. Take another deep, deep breath in. And together we say, and so it is, amen. Thank you so much.
Is it just me, or did anyone feel like he wrote that talk just for you? Thank you. Let's extend him our unity blessing, because we are, I'm sure, all so deeply inspired and levitating right now. So, Reverend David, we say, we love you, we bless you, we appreciate you, and we behold the divinity in you. Thank you. So, before we move into the next thing, I made a mistake. It's my first one of the year. I know my husband's laughing over here, rolling his eyes. So, I did make a mistake, and I apologize. I held up this little sheet and made Angela do a curtsy in front of the whole group and was incorrect in my information. So there is still a class that is today at 12:30 that is a love offering. You do not have to sign up. You just show up. But if you would like to have a personal session with Reverend Dr. David, Angela is your gal. So that's on Monday, yes. And it's from 9 to 5, is that right? Did I see that? Yeah, I saw it on this note over here. I got lots of notes today. So it's 9 to 5 on Monday. So if you feel so inspired, check in with Angela and you can sign up for one of those. Okay, so now let's bring up our usher and our prayer chaplain. Who is our prayer chaplain today? Oh, it's Cindy. So at Unity, we are about prayer. Prayer is an extremely important process in your journey. And Cindy here is our prayer chaplain for the day. If you feel called right after service here, we have a prayer chaplain room through this door and down through the hall. You'll see Cindy will be there. She'll be waiting for you with open arms. And if you do not have time, we have a prayer box here. You can put a prayer in there, and it will be prayed over by our prayer chaplain group. Also, to let you know, if you need prayer any time of the day, 24 hours a week, Unity has a prayer line that you can call. You just go to the Unity website and you can get that, and someone will literally answer the phone and pray with you in person. So, that can happen. So our ushers now will go around and collect the tithes and offerings, which are a part of our generosity and spiritual practice. Together, we will now affirm our abundant blessing, and here it is on the board. Divine love flowing through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, all that I receive, and all that I am. I am now in perfect balance and flow with the universal tides of giving and receiving. Thank you, God, and so it is. And now I turn it over to Kat and the band.
Am I strong enough to bear the burden that sometimes comes with living this thing called life? Am I wise enough to make the right decision when I'm standing at the fork in the road? Sometimes I wonder and I ponder, only to realize I'm not alone and there's nothing I have to do on my own, because I'm in a place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up. Come on, sing with me. I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up. Will I have enough to do the things I need to do to take care of myself? Will I have the health of mind and body to live a life of grace and wholeness? Sometimes I wonder and I ponder, only to realize I'm not alone and there's nothing I have to do on my own, because God is the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up. I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up. We have some bass. Do some conga. Oh, yeah. Boom, 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 boom. Hey. Come on, give me some pink. I am the place. I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up. I am the place
where God
you are the place.
and has
We are the place where God shows up. I am the
place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God
shows up. I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up.
Kat, will you do that little trill one more time? Ooh, that just feels good. Thank you, everyone. So we are going to be closing out, but again, Reverend David, 12:30, right here in our community room. It's not coming. I am out of my body today. I got to bring myself back down. This has been a good morning. Thank you. Okay, let's move into our unity closing song.
Please stand.